Bobby Broyles and Tim McDonald here.
Should be a really interesting matchup. Buckle up. If you're not watching, you got some problems.
Down to our last two teams in the 12 teams and 12-day series presented by Geico. Bobby Broyles alongside Tim McDonald. And the wait is almost over, folks. Week 1 is officially here, Tim.
Ready to go? Let's get it going right now.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get started.
But before looking ahead, though, today we're looking at Villanova. And, of course, the big storyline is head coach Andy Talley's announcement that this will be his last season as the head coach of the Wildcats. One of the more intriguing teams during this series in my mind, Tim, simply because of how last year this squad responded so favorably after John Robertson went down with an injury.
I would have to ultimately agree with you in that one because you think about Villanova's season. Started out so hot. You have John Robertson, you have Don Cherry, all these guys back, and the expectations. All of a sudden, in the early portion of 2015, John Robertson gets hurt. Zach Bednarczyk, a guy comes in, and we don't even know anything about him, comes back and leads the team off the bench versus Delaware. And the season kind of turns around. You ultimately lose that game to James Madison, which I think kept you out of the playoffs.
Yep.
One game short of the playoffs. But to reach that point is just amazing. Think about Andy Talley, too. His decision, I think this is all on him. He knew it was the right time. 32 years. Think about that for a second. I mean, not only 32 years as a coach, but at the same school. It's just remarkable what he's done. Overall coaching career record of 249, 151 and 2. I bet he still remembers those two ties.
Yeah, sure.
Which makes him right now the winningest active coach in both the FBS and FCS level. 2015 wasn't supposed to set up and wasn't supposed to end how it exactly happened, but Bednarczyk is a guy now, at least you know, as a coaching staff and as a team, CAA Co-Offensive Rookie of the Year. He comes in, he's pretty much just taking over the reins. You don't have any real questions. 515 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns rushing, 10 touchdowns passing, 7 interceptions. Redshirt freshman kind of thrust in, not expected to play. Only expect improvement from him. A lot of question marks, though, at the wide receiver position. Kevin Gulius is gone. You look at Jared McClinton is back, Matt Gudzik is back, but besides those two guys alone only had 2 touchdowns receiving. The rest of the team didn't have a touchdown, guys that returned this season. So running back is huge, wide receiver is huge, but again, it is nice to have that one piece with Bednarczyk at least at quarterback. And I know Coach Talley already likes what he sees in him. We're not going to make the comparisons yet between him and Robertson.
Exactly, it's early
but
on.
It is nice to know that as a sophomore, he's their guy moving forward.
At his final media day, Coach Talley spoke to us about his sophomore quarterback.
Well, I think he came in with a tag as a gunslinger because he's got a really strong arm. And I think he realized that he needs to stay with his reads. He threw a few interceptions that really, really hurt us, especially in the last game of the year against JMU, which would have maybe put us in the playoffs had we won the game. So I think he's being a little more judicious about where he's throwing the football, and I think that was the biggest thing that he needed to learn. But in terms of leadership, pulling the ball down and running the ball and running the team, he came along very well in those areas.
Like the offense, Tim, 5 starters are back on defense, but all 5 players have a ton of experience. 4 of those guys, including Austin Calitro and Tano Passignon, we're going to try to get through that today, earned some type of All-CAA honors in 2015, so you have to feel good about that side of the ball.
Yeah, you definitely do. And, replacing production and leadership. Think about that. Don Cherry, Reggie Paris, Cam McMurray, all guys who played at least 3+ years. Yeah. You also have to find some depth. I mean, we do talk a lot about teams, and we talk about here's their star player on defense, here's what they need to look to. But with Villanova, you really do up and down this list. There's only 5 guys, but they're 5 guys who have contributed and played a lot of football, especially in the last couple of years. Austin Calitro led the team in tackles last year, 90 tackles, also had 11.5 for loss, 4.5 sacks. And Tano, as you say, I'm going to mess up that name many times this year, but absolutely. I mean, he stole the show at Media Day, just looking up to him, trying to talk to him.
Yes, his presence definitely stole the day, yes.
Huge guy, but also has the production. A first-team All-CAA guy last season, 9.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. Not to mention, think about the secondary. You also have Malik Reeves and Jason Senius back. Both of those guys, all of those guys, I should say, earned some type of All-CAA honors. The only guy who didn't was Corey Majors, and he made 11 starts last year. So there's 5 guys who you can rely on defense. And Villanova defense last year, no slouch. And I think people often overlook Villanova because they think of the flashy offense. But second in scoring defense, 18.4. 5th in rush defense. 2nd in pass defense, and number 2 in total defense. Only one other team allowed more total touchdowns than Villanova last season. That was Stony Brook. Villanova only allowed 19 total touchdowns. Often overlooked at this unit, which I think you'll allude to here. We always talk about Villanova being overlooked on defense, and I think that only helps them going into a new season.
Yes, it does. Here's Coach Talley and what he expects for his 2 leaders on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, Tano Passignon is a physical specimen. He's 6'7", 290 pounds, and when you look at him, he actually looks thin, and he can run and jump. He's a top pro prospect, and coming off the edge, I think you have to know where he is. I'm sure he's going to get double teamed a lot. I feel he's going to go early in the NFL draft. Austin Calitro is a typical tremendous linebacker. He has all the skill set that you're looking for. He's smart. He knows our defense. He can run. He's about 245 and is a real physical presence. I think he'll be among the best linebackers in the league. So those two guys, along with Nico D'Angelo, who is the third captain of our team, are three tremendous leaders for us.
Should be exciting to see the Wildcat defense get after it this season, Tim. Like we said earlier, this will be Andy Talley's final year at Villanova, and with all that he's done for the program, I want to know if that extra factor really can make an impact for this team.
It sounds corny, but I do believe it can. And, just talking with Austin Calitro at Media Day, what's he like off the field? And we get to know Andy Talley, too. We know him as a coach now and what he's done for Villanova. Yep. I really do think, Austin said, we want Coach to go out on top. We want this to be a memorable season. Going back to 2015, one win away from the playoffs, lose to UConn by 5, lose to Penn at home, a team that they had not lost to in a long time at home. Yep. James Madison to end the year. I still think there's a lot of fire in Villanova in this tank. This season's FBS game is Pitt, a very tough opponent, but I think somewhat manageable. Obviously, it's an FBS game, so it's going to be tough. Lehigh and Towson at home, then you come back and play at Lafayette and at Leon. So the start, yes, there's a mixture of hard games, but I think it's also manageable. Final 3 road games, though, I think are going to be the biggest test for this team. Richmond, Maine, and of course the Battle of Blue back at the end of the season versus Delaware. You'd love to think that Andy Talley can get a chance to really have an impact this season. He's already done so much. We talk about what he's done off the field, the bone marrow transplants that he's worked with, the National Bone Marrow Donor Program. So much that he's done off the field. It's going to be nice for him, I think, to go out on top. And if Villanova, you're picked 4th in the preseason poll for a reason. I think this team has a lot of fire, like I said, left from last year's sour end.
Villanova kicks off its season from Heinz Field against ACC foe Pitt on Saturday, September the 3rd at 1:30. This game will be available live on ESPN3 and the Watch ESPN app.
And we got to know both Austin Calitro and Tono Passignon at Media Day. And as always, during this series, you can head over to CAA Football now to watch their game day features.
One more team left on the 2016 edition of 12 Teams in 12 Days presented by Geico. Tim and I break down the William & Mary Tribe tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.